Welcome to the Rich Mind podcast, and it is a total pleasure today to be able to introduce to you the latest podcast, which is with Leo Bigger. And Leo Bigger is the senior pastor of ICF Zurich, and it's a church of over 3,000 people and is brilliantly known all over Europe because he also leads the ICF movement, which has got over 70 churches in 12 countries. He's married to Suzanne, who leads ICF with him, and they've got these two great grown-up children who he's been able to partner along with and have helped him build the church. And I have this amazing conversation with Leo, and we talk all about building local church. He's honest, he's raw. He talks to us about micro church, what that looks like, how they've capitalized on the corona season. And when I mean capitalized, they understand that it's been a really tough season, but they've looked and said, how can the gospel get out more? And he's just got some fascinating insights. I absolutely loved chatting to him, and his time with us is precious. And so let's jump straight in to listen to this brilliant podcast by Leo Bigger. Okay, it's great we get to be here today with Leo Bigger, who I am a huge fan of, and I've had the privilege of seeing Leo speak many times. I've also managed to visit his church in Zurich, which was the most memorable trip because it was the third week that those guys had this incredible building over there, which is called the Samsung Center, and his church use it and a part of it every single week and pack it out. And they have over 3,500 people in their church and thousands more that are watching online. And what I love about Leo, and we're going to tuck into it a little bit, but what I know you're here, Leo, so I feel like I'm speaking about someone that's not there. But what I love about Leo is he is the real deal. He's authentic. He has built ICF Europe, specifically Zurich, but a lot of other campuses around Europe and the world, has built it with this authentic Jesus-loving spirit that is infectious. And I wanted just to chat to you today, Leo, because I've been encouraged watching a little bit of your journey and knowing some of it. And I just wanted to try capture some of that to encourage some people. And knowing that we're in times which are sometimes when you turn on the news or read stuff about Christianity in Europe specifically, it's not hugely encouraging. There are lighthouses and there are people like yourselves and groups and movements like yourselves who are doing great work. So thank you so much for being with us. And could you give a little bit of an insight into Leo Bigger and your world for anyone who maybe hasn't come across you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Actually, it's a big privilege. Yeah, I was brought up actually in a Catholic setting. My mom, she took us always every Sunday to the church, and since I'm a small child, I always believed in God. I just somehow loved the church. But when I was 18 years old, I drifted a little bit, and then a friend of mine he invited me to a youth meeting, and I met Jesus there.
Wow.
And I went back to the Catholic Church and I asked myself my question, why I'm the only one who's sitting there? Where are all my friends? And I felt if I could do church or if I could be the Pope, actually, I just felt like outside of the box. If I could be the Pope, what would I do? And I realized I will not change God. I will not change the Bible. I will change a little bit how we do church. Because from my mom, it was the perfect setting, the perfect style. Then I met a friend and he said, hey, we start a new church in Zurich. Do you want to join? And I had these ideas in my mind of a new church, doing the things a little bit differently. And I remember the first service we did, we started with 300 people. It was 30 years ago. It was like the moment. And we just did a little bit like the worship style, like in America, preaching more with energy out of the Bible and all those things. And that church was growing, exploding. And after 5 years, we start planting churches, and all of a sudden, it became a movement.
Wow.
But our main goal in the beginning was, and it's still our goal, is just to reach unbelievers, people they don't attend any church, not watering down the gospel or watering down Jesus, bringing the real Jesus, bringing the real Bible, but just doing it on a way that people can understand and can relate. That's a little bit my story. And now we became a big movement, and people ask me, how is it? And I said, it's the same passion like 30 years ago. I love Jesus. I love my Bible. My question is, even now, even 30 years ago, how can we engage or how can we reach uh, people for Jesus Christ in a setting like Switzerland or Germany or Austria or the Netherlands, wherever they are?
Which is incredible. And that is part and parcel of what I think if you cut Leo Bigger through, that's what you get is it's for the people. And I know I loved going to your service when I was in Zurich. And what surprised me is I think the first one was in High German, the second one was in Swiss, the third one was in English, and I think the fourth one was, I don't know, maybe I can't remember what it was in, but it was
Speaking in tongues, the whole
yeah.
service. No, no.
But it was
Are you right?
fascinating because it held
Yeah.
what you said, which is it's for the people. And when you're in Switzerland, that you are bumping into lots of different people groups, and you'd said, "Hey, we're going to try our hardest to connect with these people." I got so many questions, but talk us through your ICF movement so that people maybe who wouldn't know about it. When I hear of ICF, or when I first have heard of it, I'm thinking, "Oh, is this like a Hillsong thing where it's going to be the same thing every single place?" And Leo's referenced everywhere, which is some ways of doing it, and that's how some church organizations do it, but you do it slightly differently. You are a movement, but can you talk to us about the autonomy that churches have and how that works to be part of the ICF movement, of which you've got, is it 70 churches?
Yeah, right. You're right. Yeah, the thing is, we started as one church and we were like three friends, and we said we're doing one church, but it will be big in Zurich. That's it. No church planting, nothing. That's a little bit our story, you know. We were not in no movement. We were like independent because we figured out when you're going in so many movements, often you have to do exactly the same way. And I'm a little bit like a freedom guy. I need my space and everything. And that's a little bit our story. To make a long story short, why we are doing things differently was we were on a wedding in the Alps, and we had a wedding, and really we had like a revival moment. 30 people got saved immediately. I've never seen something before. Really, not like people they have been Christian before, like zero Christian before, like boom. And that they came from another city, like Basel. They drove usually more than an hour to Zurich, and that's big for Switzerland. They said, we want to plant a church there too. We want to be an ICF there too. And I said, no way, we will not do any church planting. Forget it. And Les Doc shows up and speaks clearly. And then we invited the prophet for a leadership meeting. And he came and he started prophesying so clearly, so specifically that they should start a church. And after that prophetic message, we took that pastors on stage, that group on stage, we released them out. This was our first church plant, like a God thing.
Wow.
We had no plan, no structure, nothing. And they asked me, what should we do? Should we do now exactly the same like you do in Zurich? I said, I don't know. Just do it. Just reach people. I don't care. This is our story. That church grew. And then maybe 8 other friends from our church, they said, I want to plant the church too. And they left. And that like the first 10 church planting were from the inside out. And I felt like I must be a horrible leader because everyone wants to leave, wants to do their own thing. And we had no plan, no structure, no vision. We were friends with the same name or logo, and we grew up in the church. And after we have been 10 churches, we said, okay, how should we do the movement? And I said, I don't care. Let's win people. Let's be, every church should be independent, but we are somehow connected as friends. And that's a little bit like out of the history, our story, how we do it. It's not like Hillsong, one house, many rooms. It works very well for certain people, but for certain people like me, I like more freedom, doing my own way. And that's why we have the same name, same logo, some values, but then you have space to do whatever you believe it's right. It has to do with our story, with our background a little bit.
Wow. And the fact that you've been able to I mean, another good thing about yourself, Leo, is you're consistent. You've been doing this since, is it 1996, was it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so there's this
Yeah.
huge consistency that's been going on with it. Talk us through, you talked about, the Zurich church when you'd started it, of how you just wanted it for the people. That the people have radically changed. And so,
Yeah.
the people of Europe in these cities, how they think, the Gen Zs, the millennials, although they seem a bit
Yeah.
old now, but these people groups that are radically changing, especially in Europe, where we see this secularization, which is deeper than ever before. And
Yeah.
how have you responded to that, or how have you navigated those things?
I have to be always, I think always a little bit about my mom when she always said to my generation, oh, you are not good, you're the worst generation, because out of her perspective, we are different. And I think I'm in the same position like my mom, looking down to the young generation, thinking they are nuts, they're going crazy. And I made a decision, I will not do that because I really believe that every generation has certain keys or certain values or certain a way to win people. Of course, the language is changing, how they talk, how they think, it's different. But the gospel is in the end of the day the same thing like 30 years ago, like now. And I think because the Bible says David in the Bible, he spread the word, and after he did the will of God, he died. And I understand my generation, and I think to the younger generation, you have to understand your generation, how you dress, how you speak, how you do church, how you win those people. And what we do is like on Sunday evening, we change the whole Sunday evening more for the younger generation. They preach, they teach, they do worship, they have their own songs, their own language, their own topics, and they think differently. But now is the good news because that generation has no clue about God anymore. They're not growing up in a church that, oh, I'm so disappointed about church. I'm hurt about church. I'm done with all the Bible stories. They never heard about the Bible. They never heard about God. They have no clue what is Jesus and what is God and why the Holy Spirit. They have no clue. If you preach about David, they said, oh, you mean David from the school? You know what I mean? Who is Goliath? All those things. They never heard those stories. It is so easy. That's the point. That generation is so easy to invite people because they don't have a feeling or a story about church. And what we experience every Sunday evening in that generation, they're winning people for Christ and they're growing as well. But they're doing certain things a little bit different than we did, but they will find also their ways.
Wow. Wow. And that part and parcel of what you've done then is you've had to like adapt hugely. I think everyone knows, and I think we're all a bit done talking about Corona and how we've all had to adapt for it. But I'm going to go there, Leo.
Do it, no problem.
And only because I think it has been a bit of a turning point for every church that is. It's made us all rethink in a healthy, fresh way of what that looks like. How have you done that with your movement? How have you done that with the church that you're in? What things have you had to rethink, or where have you gone differently?
The good thing is I'm more like a possibility thinker. When Corona hit, I always think, how can we reach people? Because we always preach and teach and say, church is not a building. But before Corona, you can say it easily because you have a building, Or we're saying, well, that people are not here for the church is here for the people. We taught that, we preached and people said, amen. But when Corona hit, all those things came to pass, actually. And I said, okay, even though if you're only able to meet with one or two persons, then just do it. Win people on the online, Zoom with people, with believers, with unbelievers. Use every opportunity to stay connected with Zoom, with online. People are still reading the Bible even before Corona, and in the Corona, people always reading the Bible. Those things are not changing. It's more a little bit how we think church is. And I'm not fixed about the church is like when on Sunday we come together. This is the things. This can change all the time. And that's why we said in the beginning, we come stronger out of Corona than we entered Corona. This was our main thing. And in Corona, what has changed for us, it's the whole online exploded. And a friend of mine, he works in the event industry. And he's very big in Switzerland. Before Corona, he said to me, from now, maybe in 10 years, the hybrid, the online and the in-person will be the new normal. I laughed and said to him, you are crazy. It cannot be. But then Corona came and now hybrid, it's a no-brainer. Everyone is knowing in-person and online, it's you be using both. And he was like a prophet ahead. And I think we can reach much more people with online. This podcast is the best example. I don't have to fly in anymore. We can doing a Zoom, have a talk around the world, not flying, staying at home, being connected, and all those things. And in the Corona crisis, what we did, we started like micro churches around Europe. We had some people, they lived in a valley or far away, and said, we don't have a church actually anymore. And we feel connected with Zurich. And my response was, no, you cannot be connected in Zurich. If you're living in Germany, find the church around your corner. Be local. And said, yeah, but there is no church. You are my only church. And after maybe 6 months, I was realizing I'm the problem. They feel connected to online. They have never been in Zurich. They have never met me in person. And now we started 30 micro churches in Austria, in Germany, in the Netherlands, all over. And that just opened up their houses. And a part of them, maybe they're doing like the message via Zoom, worship maybe doing by themselves. Sometimes they're doing the preaching by themselves. They just say, I said it's my church and we are connected, but they're not in Zurich. This has changed dramatically in our thinking. How we do church, you cannot say only anymore, we're reaching local. I'm a church in Zurich. It's no, you maybe you're living locally, but you have to think globally because online it's global. It's no borders. You cannot say to people what they want to see, what they want to hear. They can choose by themselves. And this is for me a huge blessing. That means I'm also not for ICC the only preacher they will listen to, unfortunately. You know what I mean? They listen to Joyce Meyer, whoever, Mike Todd, whoever. It's like you know what I mean? It's an amazing opportunity at the moment.
So let me ask about that then. I've got a few thoughts of direction with that about microchurch.
Yeah.
Is that not maybe necessarily, Leo, because you are an outstanding communicator? So you have the gift of communicating. You have this brilliant ability. I've seen you do stuff with props. I've seen cars on stages.
Yeah.
I've seen. I mean, you managed to do all sorts. You have this brilliant, creative way to communicate. Well, that then does lend itself to someone in some Swiss Alps hut somewhere that's got his skis on. He's about to go ski. Oh, I'll just listen to Leo beforehand because the barrier to listening to you is pretty easy. If I went to do that myself, I don't carry as big a gift as you, and for whatever reason, be it I haven't practiced enough or God or whatever. So I hear you and I think, yeah, but it's all right for you, Leo, because you have got this gift, and so thousands are going to listen.
Yeah.
So go for how would you answer that?
I have an answer because a lot of people ask the same question. Oh, it's pretty easy because you're a big player in the whole kingdom thing. Yeah. So right. And but still, I have a friend of mine. He leads a church with 100 people, and Corona hit, and he has a huge family. They're living maybe 2 hours far away from him, and they're not going to any church anymore. And in the Corona, my friend who's a pastor sent the link to the mom, to the dads, to the relatives, to those people in the valley. And for the very first time, every Sunday in the Corona season, they start listening to him, and he was reaching all of a sudden, of course, not like me, thousands of people, but he reached maybe 100 people he never reached before. And all of a sudden he said, okay, I'm not only going for 100 people, I want to reach those people in the valleys as well. And he did the same thing. He started also micro churches, not 30, maybe 2 micro churches around far away from him. They say, we love you. We love the way how you teach and preach. And we feel like more connected with you actually. And even himself, he had a growth of 2 micro churches, and before he had no micro churches. He won people. They're not living in his city, far away. And I think if everyone thinks a bit outside of the box, maybe you're only starting 1 micro church, but better 1 micro church than nothing. But there's still certain people that feel connected with a certain style, or even though with a language. If you're coming from Austria and also you're moving to America, you feel alone, and you figure out there's some Austrian people, they're living there in that area. I heard that story, and also they connecting once a week and said, oh, we feel connected with Austria, but we're living in America. I think there's much more varieties. It's not just only one way anymore how you can reach people. We have much more varieties, options. And I always love the word options, because at the end of the day, we want to reach people. And it's not about my logo, like ego. We want to reach people for Jesus Christ, and we want to use every opportunity to win them, actually.
Amazing. And what I love about you is relative, essentially, is what all of that is. It's relative, is that relatively you might have X amount of thousand people listening to you, and your friend in the Alps, he has 100, but it's relative to, the extension of the gospel, the extension of the message that they've got reaches people.
And that's another thing. Another friend of mine, he has a church of 80 people. Usually we would say before, oh, I'm 80 people. That's my future. That's maybe we grow to 200 people. He started on online in YouTube a podcast, and he brings every morning a message of 2 minutes out of the Bible. He has hundreds of people listening to him every morning. There's more people now watching him online than in his church. And he comes out stronger than before. And before Corona, he will stick with the 80 people. You're going to a big conference of Hillsong Planet Shakers. You're going home and you are very frustrated because your future is maybe 200 people. You know what I'm talking about? But online, the YouTube opened up his mind and said, I have a platform. And if I'm doing good, maybe I'm an excellent teacher in the Word of God, I have a platform like never before. The platform became for everyone much bigger. You don't have to be, you don't have to lead a big church to be happy, have a big voice. You can be just gifted in one area, and also people are watching and listening to you.
Wow, wow. And you're totally right. You a bit of my story of starting this podcast is I was like, how can I help people? I was having conversations in rooms and corridors with leaders like this, really. And I was thinking, God, I'd love it if people did listen. And so it was the combination of easy, accessible technology. It's not that difficult. I'm not a techno guy, but yeah, I'm pretty much produce all of this and put it out. I've just learned a few
Yeah,
things. It's dead
yeah,
simple, and
it is.
hundreds and hundreds now get it rather than just three or four that I could tell about. So I can totally relate to that. Backing up a little bit, micro church. I want to just go there. I don't know, but let me. Can I ask some more questions around this? Because
Absolutely.
so you say like we've got these options now. So it's now like great options is what it's all about. But maybe one of the reasons that we've not had options before is because it requires us to break out of what our traditional thinking of what a church is. So
Yeah.
so well, how does tithing work? If you suddenly have options, how does pastoral care work? How do we facilitate insurance? If they're a micro church and they suddenly go on a walk and one of them collapses down, is that our I'm talking silly stuff, but let's just talk like
Yeah.
biblical, what Paul wrote down of what an elder should be or what a deacon should be. And one of the reasons I would say that options have not been plenty is because it was a lot easier for us just to say, well, this is where we meet, and within these four walls, this is how we'll constrain it. How, as you've gone for these options, have you gone about things like eldership, deaconship, membership, giving? Where have you gone in your head? And I'm really happy if you say, we don't know, we're working it out as we go. I'm really happy with that answer, but just
Yeah.
go wherever you want with your answer.
My answer is actually what you said at the beginning. We have no clue where we're going, actually. It just happened because people approached us. They said, no, 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 you cannot be a micro church. We will not do that. You have to find your own church. And said, there is no church in our area. And then my team sit together and said, oh, how can we do this strategically? And that how always can we think strategically over people? Just open up their houses at the moment. And then we want to ask the question to those people, what do you need? What kind of support do you need? How can we help you? And this is actually at the moment what we're doing. Of course, we have like a Zoom meeting once a week with these 30 people, and they ask us the same question: what is our job? Can we preach? Can we lead worship? All those things. And I said, hey, we are on a journey of that. We have never done it before. We want to just help you, but yeah. And then one group actually at the moment, this group is exploding in Germany, in a city that now at 70. I mean, they started with 10 people. They're now 70 people. And I think we will plant with those people in church. That's the thing. Out of micro church, there will also church planting happen. Or it can be that the micro church will say, oh, we feel more connected with that church. We wanna change. We said we don't wanna, people don't have to sign in or make a war or commitment. We just said we are on a journey and we are super easy. We just want to help you. Even though we've tithing, you just give wherever you want to give at the moment, because we're not in that stage that we have a clear structure, to be quite honest. But what we have in Zurich, we have like around Zurich, we have like 4 locations. We are like churches where we meet on Sunday, but off that we have like 30 micro churches around Europe, and we are on a journey.
And
But I
and has
think
that has
my,
that journey, sorry, has that journey pushed you? Because I can only imagine, pre-corona, you've got your 2-3 years thinking of where something could go. Corona comes, it does what we've seen it do. Has it pushed you now somewhere doctrinally where you're like, how can this methodology work out? And do you feel slightly uncomfortable? Do you feel like, I just want to get a little, if you let me, give us a
no,
little bit of insight
we,
of the
we,
Leo Bigger world.
we have a lot of talks. We have a lot of fights about that topic. To be quite honest, we are not agree my team. We are not agree about how we do microchurch. We have some people in our team that they want a clear structure. Microchurch needs a structure because that's our name, our logo, blah blah. If a microchurch goes wrong, it's our name, it's our reputation. Then comes me and say, I don't care about the name. I don't care about my brand. I don't care about branding. The only branding I care is Jesus, really. And that's always a big fight. They say, yeah, but you're an apostle, you're just going forward, but you don't think reputation in newspaper, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't want to think about always make a protection about that our name label is protected. I'm not going into that. Can you sense? That's the fight we are in. And then I said to my team, this is not crazy. We always talk about people, that we know what people need. We know what people should do. And this is wrong. And I think the church has done that too long. Only because I have a church vision, it doesn't mean you have to have the same vision. You are attending a church and the pastor has a vision, and you're sitting there and say, "Oh, I love you, I love the church," but I don't get the vision. And then will people, the pastor say, "Yeah, you're wrong. You're not committed." Blah 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 blah. All those things. And that's why I love Corona, because we have to serve people that they're getting to be fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. This is what I believe, that they read the Bible, they are strong impressed, they are discipled, they are being strong discipled. That's our job. And church is just a tool, not more or not less. And we are in the midst of the topic. And then I made a call. That was me. So I don't care about the conversation. We don't have time. We just do it. We just do something, and we are on a journey. And along the journey, we will see where we're going. But this is the first time in life you had some house churches, they will have been independent, but then you have the challenge when you have kids and they go teenager, it's boring. Then usually the teenager leaving, going to bigger churches, or you have a big church where also the platform is very small because it's only one preacher, one platform. And I think that could be a combination for the very first time where house churches and a big church are working together somehow. This is what I feel, but I don't have the answer. We are on a journey, but I love it. I love the journey because it made how we think about church, how can we help people. It does something in our brain, because you cannot say anymore, you have to come in my building. That's over in Corona, because for 18 months, the government says, stay at home, don't go anywhere. And people have this, they heard that and they say, why should I go? Why should I drive an hour? Tell me why.
I just wanted to take a pause out of this amazing podcast and talk to you about our great sponsor, who is Compassion. Compassion work all around the world, and I'd love you to hear from my friend Dave Niblock about his experience as a church leader working with Compassion. Hey Dave, so if you could just let us know, you've been involved with Compassion, helping out and doing a whole lot of stuff with them over the years. How have you as a church leader seen partnering with Compassion make a difference in people's lives that you're helping pastor?
Yeah, I love Compassion, Rich. I think it's an incredible organization. And me and Abs have had the privilege of actually being out there firsthand in Kenya. We actually visited the child that we've been sponsoring for over a decade now, which was amazing. And so obviously there are incredible benefits to the actual children being sponsored. They are amazing. They are life-changing. But what we've also found is that there are benefits to the person in the church sponsoring the child.
Right.
And those benefits include just it's called Compassion, but we've found our church become more compassionate in their nature. We've found them become more generous. They are often the ones who serve and contribute. And so it doesn't detract from your church when the church get involved with Compassion. We've actually found the opposite, that it actually, increases and improves their giving and their contribution to the church. And so for us, it's been a win-win all round.
Amazing. And if there was a church leader or someone in ministry out there thinking about partnering with Compassion, what would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be get in touch with them and speak to one of their regional managers in terms of what they do. They're very relational. There's not huge demand from them. But they just want to really make a difference in the lives of young people across the globe. And they will just talk that through with you, the best ways for you to do that and how that benefits your church. And so, I definitely encourage people to get on board.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dave. To find out more about the work of Compassion, just go to their great website, compassionuk.org. Okay, let's jump straight back into the conversation. you're describing what churches are going through. We're all feeling what you're describing. I suppose trying just to tap back into it one last time to see if there's something else in there. How are you wrestling through what the role of you as senior leader, because you're throwing some big things out the window, or not throwing them out, sorry, you're putting them on pause. So you're not throwing them out. I take that totally back, but you're definitely putting them on pause, or you're just saying, I don't yet know. How are you getting through that? Because what is church membership? What is attendance? What is community? I mean, there's a big one right there. What is, what happens if someone wants to get baptized? What happens if you need to instate a pastor? What happens if, how do you work or wrestle all that out, knowing that we've had all of that, and we were nearly nailing it down just before Corona. We were nearly mastering this thing called, look, would nearly even venture to what an elder was in a new breed style church. Then Corona comes along and strips it all.
Yeah, Corona is just honest. I mean, people, they look at the thing, people love God. Even though people are not going, attending maybe a church anymore, maybe more online, they are committed. They're real people. You cannot say online is fake, online is not real. It's a different world. People think different. Young people connecting very, very differently. For us, I mean, to be quite honest, we never had, because we don't have membership in ICEF. That's why membership was never a question for us. People could baptize people wherever they want. We just said you can baptize in the church, in an ICEF camp, in the small group. You cannot do it at home. But if you baptize people, we always had a paper where we help people when you baptize people that you have a little bit like a background. What is baptism all about? So we created actually a lot of helps when people do weddings or when people do funerals or whatever. It's just a paper where we help people a little bit to do it in a properly way. This is what we did actually all the time. That's why for us was the question about leadership or membership, all those things was actually not a big deal, because we are not leading tight. We have a loose leadership. My goal is to equip people, to release people, either people staying in the church, or some people they're moving out of the church, people starting their own churches, some people they're starting an ICEF. Some people they're leading and they don't plant an ICEF. It doesn't matter. We are equipping people, releasing people, but they love the Lord. And some people started companies and businesses and all those things. That's the job of the pastor. We release all the time people into their specific calling that God has given them. And that's why for me or for us, it's the micro church or whatever, not a big deal. I said to them, if you feel in 2 years, ICEF is not the right church, you can go with your whole micro church to another church. We don't care. We have another problem at the moment. We cannot meet, and we just try out something new. And we don't hold people tight, leave it loose, that people can decide, because in the end of the day, let's be honest, people decide anyhow.
Right.
If they made a decision, they made a decision. And I'm not their God. God is their God, and God is my God. And often as a pastor, I don't own the people. I don't own the micro churches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't own them. And my biggest job is that those people are on fire for Jesus, winning people for Christ, baptize those people, make the people disciples, and multiplying the same thing anymore. And now my response is, in every leadership meeting, you don't own the people. You don't own the people. Submit under my leadership. Yeah, you can say that, but people are free to leave. They can quit. They can go. They're not married with me. They're not married to a church. They married with Jesus. They made a commitment to Jesus. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like Corona was in that way a good message. We don't own the people. Our job is to serve the people, whatever it takes.
Wow. I mean, there's so much in it. One of the things I would want, it's great, this, Leo, and I want to join your church. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to start a micro church here back in the UK. But it's refreshing to hear as well, because it's not necessarily, I know that is in lots of pastors' hearts, but it's not necessary. It doesn't come out all the time, as in we don't own the people. And that maybe has come from one of my questions I wanted to ask you is around about, the style of church you've built has been very much, from an outsider looking in, and I could have got it totally wrong, but very much a kind of like, we're going to build a house, God's house somewhere. Let's build these houses, be it independent all over Europe. Let's build them uniquely, fine. But that kind of trickles down to a volunteer level or a team level of where it becomes quite intense, and everyone gets focused on building local church and the mechanics of building church, from rosters to kids ministry to all the stuff, and it gets very detailed in that. And you've just described this obliteration of a lot of that type of thinking. How has that changed? Has that changed? Have you moved on from a kind of, we need people to be consumed with building the church? Because I know from the city that I'm in and the churches that I go to, volunteerism is not at an all-time high. And that's not because people don't love Jesus. It's because people are like, they've changed. And
absolutely.
How have you navigated that in this season? And how is the church shifting? Because you do have buildings, you do have big production stuff, and you've got an event feel, whether you like that word or not. It just is, you have some really big production of stuff that goes on. I mean, I think when I came to your church, you had the largest LED screen in Europe. And I mean, that doesn't just flick on at a switch and run itself. You got to have, so how have you navigated all of that?
I mean, of course, churches are, we're doing like with volunteers. It's not like the first goal to hire people that they do the job, it's the equip people. And of course, we have to win volunteers all the time. It was also difficult actually 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, you're always having not enough volunteers because the vision is always bigger. You always not have enough money because the vision is always bigger what you have. At the end of the day, you're always working with 5 breads and 2 fish. It will not work to feed all those people. For example, when we started church in a place and they're growing maybe to 80 or 100 people, the biggest mistake always is they come to Zurich or they see Hillsong, the big church with everything, and they want to have the same thing, like a full church with everything. And that's actually a killer. And I say, if you have 100 people, maybe you don't need a whole entire worship team. Maybe one guy who plays the guitar or plays the piano and sings, it's maybe enough to compare to the size. You can, if you have like a LED wall for 100 people, it's maybe too much. I mean, people feel like disconnected. And I think we should be very sensitive about the size of a church. And quality has nothing to do with having a big band. You can have one guitar player or one drummer and sings whatever. And I always say to my team, don't make it too big. Don't make it because only you've seen something you want to copy paste. Don't do that. Always think how many people we have, what can we do with those people, or what is the best setting for 80, 100 people. And then you work with that, and then you want to reach the community as well. And we have the same challenge in Zurich. We don't have too much volunteers. Every year we have to win volunteers, and also they're getting very good. And for example, in the graphic area or musicians, after 2 years, they're going and starting their own bands and doing their own production, all those things. Yeah, that's life. That's their right. That's actually a compliment. We found them, we gave them a place and they could flourish, and now they leave. That's good. That's always a compliment to us in church. That means we are a releasing church. But
amazing.
Always think about the size. You can do also with less people a good quality. Yeah, that's always the challenge.
Yeah, and I think most people could always remember back to when they've been in moments where it is just a guitar or a guy with a piano, someone with a voice, and the presence of God is just overwhelmingly wow on those nights. And you think we didn't have anything. It was the rawness. I got baptized in the Holy Spirit on a farmer's field around tents, and there was nothing. And it was this hugely life-defining power encounter that wasn't in a produced environment. And I love produced environments. I'm really glad that the band have warmed up before I get to sing my worship, that I'm not part of their practice session. So I definitely don't want to ruin that. On your copy paste mode, just kind of like me wrapping up some questions now because I'm aware of time, but the copy paste mode that you've got, that you just said, how have Europe is incredibly sensitive to wanting to be individualistic. It's secularized to the hilt. It doesn't want the smell of America. It wants to be very, very unique. You have got a distinct brand. How have you trained people, or how do you make sure that it's not just a copy paste of maybe when you do travel to America or when you do see some great stuff on TV from things? How have you managed to keep it? Like, that's what surprised me coming to you, is like they start in High German. Like, this is pretty wild or out there, it's like, how have you done that so you keep it still very European feeling? And I'm presuming it's different in each city or each location. Give us some
Yeah.
insight there.
But you know what? Europe is so different. It starts with the language, it starts with the mindset. Even Switzerland, we have 4 different languages. That
Mm.
means we are growing up with varieties of thinking, and every language is also different culture, a different mindset, a different feeling of how they do family. This is actually a bit like our story in Switzerland. If you are in America, you speak one language, and 360 millions are speaking the same language besides Spanish. You know what I mean? It is easy, but Europe is variety. It's also very beautiful actually. In the end of the day, that's why we just have certain things in common, like the logo. We have in common. Then have like some 6 vision values, like we are authentic, we are relevant, we are excellent, we are hospitable, we are excited, we are generous, out of a story of King Solomon. But this is what we have in agreement. We say we want to be big and small, input and output. Every church is big Sunday, every church is small group, every church must have an impact, input, and you have also an output. But how you do big, small, input, output, I don't know. You have to figure out by yourself. Of course, you can copy paste if you want, you can. But if you think I do it differently because I'm living in Italy, do it differently. But big is still big, small is just small. It's more like we have some values, but values are not. It's not a clear structure. It's more like an idea, and that idea you have to figure out for your whole team how we do it, and that gives enough space for every church to do their own flavor, their own style, whatever you want to do. And that's why we try not to define everything. Actually, it's just maybe 4 or 5 things we have defined actually as a movement, because every family has a family table. If you want to join a movement, there are certain things that in common, but then still enough play space. You can do whatever you want. There's no preaching. There's never like things. I preach for every church. They can invite their own preacher. They can do their own preaching series. They are for a Sunday. They can sing Hillsong songs. They can ISIF songs. They can whatever they want to do. It's up to them.
Wow. Wow. I mean, and you describe Europe really well. You know it inside out. You've been traveled around. Like we all know that. We all know.
Yeah.
I think when Starbucks came to the UK initially, they were trying to work out why profits weren't going up. And the story, whether it's a true story or not, it's a good one. But the story goes like they realized that the British people do not do unification, like they don't do a
Yeah.
uniformed way of buying
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
And they'd made every single one exactly the same. And so they basically gave free rein to their managers to make small changes, put a board up, invite a guitarist in on a Friday, move some of the products into different places. I mean, it was small, but it was like, how could you frame this for the people that are coming through the door? And they saw a direct correlation to profits going back up because there was this unique individual kind of feel to each one. And it kind of fits the Europe model really. So look,
Absolutely.
I want to just say a huge thank you. And I just want to ask one last question, which would be, what would your encouragement be to a church builder that's listening to you that finds themselves building church now at the kind of other side of a pandemic or kind of coming towards a different season? What would your encouragement be?
For me, it's like 3 things. Just really love the Lord. My statement is always, the joy of the Lord is my strength. This is point number 1 before I do anything, because that's my future. The second thing is actually be a learner. Be a learner. Learn from everyone as much as possible, because there's a lot of people, they have made some they experience in certain areas and had a breakthrough. Just copy that for a moment. Don't be too proud to say, this is because it's a big church. We copy everything. Copyright means I copy everything right. And that's copy all the best things and make it to your own story. Because in the end of the day, there is no copyright. Everything belongs to the Lord. And the third thing is just stay in your calling. Don't walk away, because Corona cannot kill you. It brings out certain topics in me. All the churches, it brings out certain topics. We are afraid of losing people, but we don't own the people. They're not belonging to us. It's really true. And end of the day, I just believe when you stay in the calling of God, do whatever you're called to do, but be a learner. That means you learn from month to month. And when you love the Lord, that's something where you will attract people because believing in God, even though if a generation says there's no such thing as a God, they can see what God is doing through your life.
Oh man,
that's my advice. 3 things.
Oh, it's great advice. And I'm so grateful for today. I'm grateful for the years of you inputting without you even knowing and just paving a way to inspire me in my 20s and 30s of what church can look like in Europe. So huge thank you for coming on today.
Welcome.
Well, I'm so grateful that I got to sit down and chat to Leo there. And I was really inspired. I was inspired by listening to him talk about how he has kind of pivoted and done church in a new way. I loved his openness of essentially him saying, we don't know what we're doing with this micro church model, and giving freedom to me listening, and I hope you guys listening, that God's doing a new thing. It's something everyone's talking about. I don't think people know exactly what it is, but Leo being able to just shed a little bit of light of what it's looking like for him in his setting, and his freedom and his expression of what his church is looking like moving forward was really refreshing to hear. So huge thank you. I hope you've enjoyed it. It'd be brilliant to hear your feedback. If you have a simple WhatsApp or a text, if you've got my number, I'll give you my number. If you haven't got my number, just DM me, or simply leave a comment somewhere. I don't know where you find yourselves on this, but share it out. I don't do this to promote myself, although ironically it is called the Rich Martin Podcast, which I find very ironic, but I'm doing it really just because I want to try help build the local church in Europe and have some of these conversations to encourage people. So huge thank you for being with us. Thank you to Compassion for partnering with us on it. They're an amazing charity. Please do check out their work, and they'll be able to help you out in any front of being able to help relieve children in poor situations. So check them out at compassionuk.org, and I'll hopefully see or hear from you in another podcast episode that I'm doing. Have a great rest of your week.